into your heart. Let us sing a song that'll reach your ears and carry us where we belong. Lead us, empower us, and bring us home to you. Give us Jesus' heart and bring us home to you.
May we hear your call to follow you and tell of your great love.
And may we bring your peace
Into the places we are most afraid to go.
We come together to seek God, trusting that God is seeking us with open arms. All are welcome here. No matter our doubts or questions, where we come from, or who we love, even in the chaotic seasons of life, we are loved by God. All are welcome here. We believe that everyone is a child of God. Every age, race, gender, identity, and creed. All are beautifully and colorfully made and of sacred worth. All are welcome here. We affirm that God is a good God who lifts the oppressed, loves the vulnerable, and is open to all. So we choose to have open hearts, open minds, and open doors to God and to each other. All are welcome here.
Hello and welcome to this gathering of Open. We're so glad to be joining with you today. You are welcome here. I'm Pastor Jonathan Perry, and this is Open, coming safely today from Open and from our homes to join with you in your home. It means so much to us right now to be able to connect in community with you in this way. So you are welcome here. Today, amidst everything from our homes and lives and stories, we come together to seek God, to seek to follow God in our world in this time, seeking to listen and learn together from each other and from the heart of God, joining in the loving work of the God of justice and joy and peace. So to center our hearts around that today, we've got some friends who are going to lead us in our liturgy this morning. They'll be leading us in words that are simple, but they are profound, that wherever you are, wherever you find yourself today, in the heart of God and the love of this community, all are welcome here. So friends, let's lift this up together.
No matter our doubts or questions, where we come from or who we love, even in the chaotic seasons of life, we are loved by God. All are welcome here.
We believe that everyone is a child of God. Every age, race, gender, identity, and creed, all are beautifully and colorfully made and of sacred worth. All are welcome here.
We affirm that God is a good God who lifts the oppressed, loves the vulnerable, and is open to all.
So we choose to have open hearts, open minds, open arms, and open doors to God and to each other. All are welcome here.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to Open Worship this morning. We are so glad that you are gathered with us from your homes today. At this time, we'd like to invite you to pop on over to opendtx.com/sign-in to let us know that you're gathered with us this morning. Even if you've done it before, this just helps us get a clearer picture of who all is with us. Also, let's greet each other in the comments and let each other know that all are welcome here. Hey friends, my name is Crystal, and with me today I have my friends Brandon and Clay and Dave and Kelly, and we are your worship leaders this morning. We just want you to know that whoever you are, whatever your story or identity is, God's love is here for you, and so are we. Let's continue to worship together.
Darkness runs for cover. worship turn into renewal. Lord, lead us home to you.
This song that we're about to sing together is a prayer that God will heal our land. We are called to make peace where it does not exist, and this is how we live into our identity as children of a bridge-building God. It takes courage, compassion, and creativity to cross bridges that are hard to cross. And as we've discovered together, no one is more qualified to begin this healing work than us. As we sing this, as we ask for God to heal our land, may we continue to answer the call to build bridges of peace where we can. Also at this time, if you have any prayer requests, please place those in the comments for us to lift up together as a community.
Flawed yet beautiful, restore, refine, Lord, you're merciful, redeem, revive, Spirit of God, open your church, pour out your presence, speak through your word. We pray in all creation, love be
Hi, friends. Thank you for being with us today. So do you remember last week? Last week was approximately 2 years ago in non-quarantine time. But if you were able to join with us last week, we talked about building bridges. In a time in which distance and division seem to rule the day, we're called to be different, to be bridge builders. We're called to the different way exemplified by Jesus, who loved his neighbor and even those who considered themselves his enemy, without ever compromising his moral courage, his compassionate love, or his message of justice and joy and peace. But insofar as he was able, Jesus sought to bridge, to love without separation or distinction, going to those who were distant, even with clear boundaries, keeping his heart open to those who stood against him, loving them and looking on them with tenacious hope and patient mercy, and loving in a way that lifted us beyond what is to glimpse what can be and will be, the glimmer of the beloved community. And Jesus' love calls us to do the same. As we reflected on this call to be bridge builders, we shared a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, written from a jail cell in Birmingham. It's a quote that, just like Jesus, challenges me every time I hear it. Dr. King writes in Letter from Birmingham Jail, "In a real sense, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality," which is such a beautiful and inspiring vision of humanity. But here's the thing. Dr. King wasn't writing this to merely be beautiful and inspiring, though it is. He was writing it to call us to action. Letter from Birmingham Jail was written to Dr. King's white Christian clergy siblings, who were telling him to slow down and not to stir up trouble by advocating for justice and voting rights and the fundamental principle that Black Lives Matter. They were telling him to stop. And so he responded with a powerful letter and a theological treatise on our call to seek justice in our world, saying that we're in this together. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And offering this beautiful, true metaphor of an interconnected garment that was meant not only to wrap readers in a warm blanket, but it was meant to open our eyes to the fact that perhaps the garment is frayed, that there are places that are worn thin, places torn through a neglect or abuse or systemic injustice. The connections between us all, our shared humanity, our sacred dignity, are threadbare and in need of repair. It calls to our compassion and our care and our moral courage, and we cannot be who we ought to be until that garment is repaired and made whole for all. And I'd encourage you this week to read or listen to Letter from Birmingham Jail this week. It speaks as much now as ever, in part because that sacred work of repair continues now just as it did in 1963, and in part because the sacred call that it offers is ancient. Its call reverberates throughout our faith story and throughout our scripture library, through the voices of the prophets and the teachings of Jesus, calling us to build bridges, to repair the garment. There's a word in Hebrew that encapsulates that sacred divine vision of the interconnectedness of humanity, the interrelated nature of reality, as King describes. It's a word that describes God's hope for us, the thing toward which we are called to strive, the end toward which our bridges are to lead. And it's the Hebrew word, shalom. Shalom is this concept that undergirds our faith story. And we may think of that word as peace, and it is that, but it is also so much more than just that. Shalom in Hebrew means holistic flourishing. It's God's hope for all of humanity to flourish as we are, holistically. That means the whole of us, all parts of us, flourish as we are in all we are and all we were built to be. Our social flourishing, spiritual, relational, educational flourishing, cultural and economic flourishing holistically. and in a way that is equitable and abundant and creative and extended to all. That is shalom. And the rabbis of early Judaism describe that holistic flourishing of shalom like a piece of fabric. A fabric or a tapestry, a garment that's interwoven with thousands of threads of relationships and society and community and families and persons and God, all woven together, each thread touching thousands of other threads and strengthening them and being strengthened by them, and together making something beautiful and strong. That fabric is a picture of shalom, this deep interconnectedness that strengthens us and creates something beautiful. But in our world, there are places where the fabric is torn or worn thin. Some threads or sections are weaker than others or have become disconnected. And acts of justice are acts to repair those tears or to strengthen the vulnerable areas or remove the tearing blade altogether. Acts of justice are acts to bring about shalom in our world, to pull us back together, to restore the beauty of the garment as intended. So one of my favorite passages that includes the word shalom is found in Jeremiah 29. It was written in a time when many Jews were living in exile in Babylon, under the rule of Babylon, a powerful empire that did not seek the good of all, who used its power to oppress the vulnerable and enrich itself, and whose culture and mores could not have been more distant or divided from that of the Jewish people. Oy vey. But at least they didn't have Facebook back then. Many wanted to run to another country or isolate themselves and have nothing to do with their neighbors. But this message came from the prophet and justice advocate named Jeremiah that said something different about God's call to the people then. It said, "Seek the shalom of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its shalom you will find your shalom," your holistic flourishing. Seek the shalom. As you're able, reweave the fabric, remove the blade, reconnect the pieces. Seek the shalom. For in its shalom you will find your shalom. That is the interconnected nature of reality. And that doesn't mean to just make peace for peace's sake, although that is something. It means to make good in our world and our relationships. Make good for goodness' sake. Make good in our world, in your relationships and in your families, for flourishing and for good. Don't reconnect the old wounds if there are things that tear are still there. Instead, reconnect the places that bring flourishing and life, but work to repair the garment, to build bridges that span the gaps and help bring the threads back together. So when I think of the bridge builders and fabric repairers of our communities, I think of the civil rights movement, of people like John Lewis and Mahalia Jackson, Martin Luther King, Abraham Heschel, Henry Nouwen, and more. I think of how they responded to the torn fabric of our interconnectedness, how they sought the shalom of the cities where they were. It was always by seeking to build bridges between those who stood on the other side. They were bridge builders, seeking reconciliation always. That was the heart of it all, and they were willing to go to great lengths and to lay so much down for the sake of those bridges they were building. But there were also times when those bridges between this side and the other were blocked, or perhaps the structure could not hold. And in those cases, they did not give up and let injustice continue to tear at us all. Instead, they faced the obstacles and courageously walked those bridges that no one else would walk to bring us back together. There are times, not always, but sometimes, when the bridge seems impossible to cross, but still we're called to walk the bridge between where we are and what is right. What is right now and what must be and can be and will be, to be that first thread stretching across to pull the gap closer. Those courageous bridges are bridges worth building as well. not between people as they are, but between this world as it should be. And to bridge that divide, insofar as we are able, we must have the courage, in the face of opposition, to walk the bridges that lead us forward, lead us toward what is right, toward shalom, toward flourishing for all, toward repair and reparation and reconciliation and the reweaving of our fabric, even if no one else is willing to walk it. Those bridges, the bridges between here and what is right, those are the bridges we need to walk. And when they do not exist, those are the bridges that we need to build. And so 2 years after Dr. King wrote that letter from Birmingham jail, seeking to build a bridge with white Christians, and 1 year after the 1964 Civil Rights Act marked the fruit of building a bridge with Lyndon Johnson and others, some bridges in our country were still blocked. Many were. In 1965, much of the South was resisting and refusing to allow Black people to vote, and doing it in ways small and big through intimidation and laws and unequal access and resources. And the fabric was so torn that it could not simply be patched together with old ways. The distance was so wide that the old bridges had failed. And so instead, Dr. King, John Lewis, many courageous Shalom-seeking women and men set out to walk across the bridge that no one else would walk, to pull us back together. I'm thinking, of course, of the 1965 Selma to Montgomery voting rights marches, a landmark moment in the civil rights movement in our country, led by Amelia Boynton and James Bevel, Dr. King, John Lewis, and many more who sought to march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama at the Capitol. And they were told that the way was blocked. State troopers were waiting on the other side of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they were. The bridge was blocked, and it seemed impossible to cross. So there are times, sometimes when we know in face of the obstacles, we need to walk the walk. In our lives, in our communities, in our families, in our countries, in our jobs, we know we need to cross the bridge toward what is right, even when it seems impossible, even when it seems it will cost, because we know we are called to seek shalom. And though it may cost, though it may hurt for a season, we know that in their shalom, we will find our shalom also. And so we must. That is the interrelated nature of reality. For many of us, we'll never face just what those who marched in Selma face. And so we look on their story not to see ourselves, but to see a calling we share. We look to cement our own conviction, sharpen our clarity, strengthen our own moral courage, so that when it is our turn to stand, in ways small and big, we might walk across our bridges also. And so on March 7th, 1965, they did. About 500 gathered and marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge into the face of Babylon, into the waiting state troopers. And I know many of you have seen the photos of the assault that followed. But when Amelia Boynton and John Lewis, Dr. King, and others crossed that bridge, it may have seemed like that bridge was sealed off forever. And for a time, for a day, it was. But they walked. And when they did, a crack opened. And though they could not cross that bridge that day, even more bridges were built as a country watched their courage and were inspired to build bridges that connected this country in new ways to each other, to a recognition of our shared humanity, our solidarity, our mutual independence. Their courage built bridges and began to reconnect our fabric. And so if you ever walk across a bridge to stand up for what's right, it may not seem like much was accomplished in the moment, but the bridges you build may not be the ones in front of you. It may be all of those who are watching, those who have their own bridges to cross and need your example and your inspiration. Or it may be the next generation coming behind you who are watching you and seeing what it means to walk this life for the sake of what matters, for the sake of each other, for the sake of shalom. And so when that time comes to walk your bridge, walk with courage. The time is always right to do what is right. And 2, walk with love. That was Dr. King's mantra. We will meet your physical force with soul force. And as difficult it is, we will still love you. We will wear you down by our capacity to love. And one day we will win our freedom. We will not only win freedom for ourselves, we will appeal to your heart and conscience that we will win you in the process, and our victory will be a double victory. Because that's what love does. It builds bridges, it repairs garments, it reconnects hearts, and love wins. Not just our victory, but the double victory of transformation, of repair, of shalom. Love is the most powerful, essential part of our walk. Doing justice begins in love, and its end is a beloved community. Even in the hard, direct work of action and advocacy, the character and the means of our walk must throughout be love. Think of the character of Shalom, interconnected, supportive, loving, life-giving, reconciling. And do acts of justice with a heart that beats with Shalom. Let our action reflect the thing that we are seeking to create. Let it be from following the way of love, of justice and joy and peace. Because we have so much work to do, not just in this season and beyond, the practice of justice will be the endeavor of a lifetime. And so let's build bridges and weave shalom in a way that will last, that will win. And love is the way that wins. So walk with courage, walk with love, and finally, keep walking. When we think of Selma, we think of that bridge that was so hard to cross. But on March 7th, the courageous community of marchers did it. 500 shalom-seeking, justice-doing, bridge-building, following in Jesus' way of love members of the courageous community walked that bridge and faced what was waiting on the other side, doing what was right. But the amazing thing was that it wasn't the end. In the face of opposition, they kept walking. 2 days later, on March 9th, they regrouped, locked arms, and marched across the bridge again for a second time. And though the troopers let them pass this time, violence still came on the other side from the community. But the nation was watching, and the next generation was watching and more. And as they walked that impossible bridge, others found their courage to walk their own bridges. And so 6 days later, Lyndon Johnson pushed through the very Voting Rights Act that they had been marching for. They couldn't get past the bridge, but they got past something that would change the world, that would help reweave some of the torn fabric, all because they walked the bridge that was before them. They kept going right toward what was right. And then they didn't stop. They came back to walk again. Just 14 days after that first bridge crossing ended in tragedy, Dr. King, John Lewis, Amelia Boynton came to march again. In the face of what is, they had faith in what must be and will be, in shalom. And so they kept walking. There's a famous photograph of the front lines of that walk with a powerful crowd marching together toward the future. But that photograph wasn't from the first march or the second march. It was from the third march across the bridge. On March 21st, they marched again, but this time 8,000 came to lock arms and join the march. What seemed weary had been rewoven. What seemed immovable became a movement, because they were following in the way of the God whose love can move stones and repair our fabric and invites us to be a part. And so when you walk your walk and take your stand and walk the bridge before you once or twice or 3 times or however long it takes, you are joining in the march and locking arms with the deepest forces in the universe, with a love that wins. So it may seem impossible or immovable, and there are still more bridges to cross. Just now, 45 years later, the color of your skin still determines your access to the vote, studies say. And we see it right here in our state as well. But this movement can still move mountains. Maybe the obstacle that seems immovable is family dynamics, workplace stuff, or relationships that seem impossible. But when you walk your walk and cross the bridge before you, you're joining arms with the God who can move stones. And so walk in courage, walk in love, and keep walking. That is the faith that can move mountains. So in our work of justice seeking, of shalom seeking, may we be people who have the creativity to build bridges that stretch across divides, the courage to walk across them, and the compassion to walk in love with every step. And the empowering love of the God who is working shalom and reweaving the garment for human flourishing. And the God who is keeping us going. And the love of the God who is with us on every bridge and beyond. May we walk the bridges set before us. Amen.
They asked you, Lord, who is my neighbor?
Good morning, Open family. I wanted to take a moment to share with you some of my thoughts about building and crossing bridges, and a prayer for clarity and strength as we are tasked with building and crossing bridges in our own lives. I think it's cute, sweet, and maybe even a little romantic to talk about love building a bridge between your heart and mine. That's a shout out to the Judds. But the reality is a little less hearts and flowers and a little more courage and grit. To think about what's under those bridges to begin with, what it is that lies between point A and point B. There are reasons that we aren't trying to walk right through it. That is a river or stream filled with snakes and dangerous currents like mistrust, hate, fear, and greed. That stuff is not pretty or cute. So bridges must rise above. And while the integrity of the bridge is not guaranteed, no matter the quality of materials or the pureness of intentions with which it is built, once the piers are sunk and the beams and columns are secured, we have effectively shared the burden. Once that bridge is built, the crossing can happen in either or both directions. So with that being said, let's center our hearts as I ask for this blessing. I ask that we be blessed with clarity of spirit to know when stretching, bending, reaching, and building are the right moves. Notice I'm not saying easy or even safe, only right, as in the next right thing. I ask for strength in our perseverance of doing things in love, for love, and out of love. Because it's hard to keep putting one foot in front of the other. No matter if the bridge is a beacon of architectural perfection or a soggy plank laid across a mud puddle. When we keep slipping and tripping, facing road construction and detours and signs in foreign languages, and our shoes are untied, and there's no Wi-Fi to connect to Google Maps, we don't know where we're going, and we may have even forgotten why we started. Let us be guided by our faith in you, our faith in ourselves, and our faith in each other. Amen.
Hi friends, my name is Crystal and I'd like to share some upcoming opportunities here at the church. Our Share the Harvest drive-thru event is just around the corner and there are so many ways that you could help. You can donate candy every Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m. under the East Wing awning or through our Amazon wish list. And since we're the only event downtown on Halloween this year, we'll need lots of candy. You can also sign up to serve at the event by passing out bags of candy, collecting registrations, and even just coming in costume to wave at participants as they drive through. It's going to be such a fun time, and we're really excited to provide this safe opportunity for our community. Also, the Alternative Gifts Fair is going virtual this year. During the first weekend in November, you'll have an opportunity to donate to our partner nonprofits as an alternative gift for your friends and family over the holidays. You'll receive a gift certificate that shows that you donated on behalf of your loved one. There will be matching grants for many of these organizations, so this will be an incredible opportunity to give back as we enter a season of gratitude. Be on the lookout for more information at fumcdenton.com.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, friends. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you for being people who truly are bridge builders, who walk with courage, walk with love, keep walking with tenacious hope and mountain-moving faith. May God continue to do bridge building, reweaving, shalom-seeking work through you all. Thank you. And we do this together. A great way to live into our connection and our community is to gather together in groups. Throughout the week, there are opportunities to connect with others in groups and growth opportunities. You can find a list of them at opendtx.com/groups. And a few I want to highlight this week. On Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. is a group called More Open, hosted by Lisa Benton Nelson, where you can meet others and talk a little bit more and more deeply about the theme from Open this week, how you experience it in your own lives. It is literally more open, and it is awesome. And then on Sundays at 9:45, a group called Open Thought meets on Zoom. And they're studying through the Gospel of Matthew through the lens of being radical disciples of Jesus' way of love right before we gather here on Sunday mornings together. You can join with them. And on Wednesday this week at 8 p.m. on Zoom, we have our next open game night, which is always a lot of fun. Come join for hilarity and hijinks and some honest-to-goodness community in the midst of all this. It's always just an awesome time. You can just go to opendtx.com/groups to learn more about these and all our opportunities and to let us know that you're interested. Next Sunday, October 25th, we have an opportunity. We're going to be continuing to stream online at 11 o'clock, as we will always. We'll also have an opportunity for a small, brief communion service at 9 a.m. with the FUMC Denton larger family. The open band, I will be there, and many more. And if you wish, you can come join us. Bring a mask, bring a lawn chair for a safe, socially distanced outdoor time in the courtyard near the playground by Open. We wanted to thank you for the ways that you continue to connect in this community, support each other through your love and your care, and the ways that you're supporting this community with deep love and generosity. And each week you can go to opendtx.com/give to support this community that is a beacon of hope and good for me and for so many. Thank you. And finally, let us know you're here at opendtx.com/sign-in. It helps us whenever you watch to get a good picture of this community and to stay connected with each other. Thank you so much for signing in and for doing that. And so now, as you go into the world, into your neighborhoods, into your lives, to build bridges and bring love, take these words of hope and benediction with you as you go until we meet again. Friends, as you go on your journey this week, may we follow after that way of love and life, of shalom, that we, as beloved children of God, may live lives that bear witness to the reconciling, peacemaking, shalom-seeking, all-transforming love of God. Empowered by God and the strength of community, may we keep going and keep choosing to walk in the way of love for our neighbor, for ourselves, with courage, with love, with faith. Beloved community, go forth this week, covered in love, empowered by love. Go in grace, go in peace, and go in the love of God always. Amen.